floor is all yours, Mr. Jung.
예, 발표를 맡게 된 한마음.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jung Sang-man. I am a teacher at a middle school here in Korea. It's a great pleasure to meet you all. Today, I'd like to talk about a universal theme of family, and also I'd like to share a few thoughts and opinions of mine on the theme of family. So if we take a look at the films or the TV shows, we can understand what kind of consensus there is on family among the general public here in Korea. And also, I'd like to talk about the peculiarities of the way that the Korean society sees its family system. And also, I'd like to talk about the meaning of family and the teachings of three major religions here in Korea. And also, I'd like to take a look at the spiritual perspective on family in Venerable Seon Master Daehaeng's teachings. Before I get started with my introduction, I'd like to quote an editor of a Joseon Daily newspaper, who is Lee Gyu-tae, and he actually mentioned that one of the biggest characteristics of the Korean social system is its focus on family. And also, he just mentioned that Koreans place family at their very heart as a kind of top priority and the most important value. So this is the title of his book, Korea, with its people placing family at their very heart. And he also mentioned in his book that this kind of family-centered value system is common to peoples in monsoon climate, particularly among the rice-growing people. However, Korean family-centeredness is far stronger and more thorough than Japan or China. And also in his book, he mentioned that Koreans never sacrifice the selfishness for the sake of the community outside of their families. So we all know that actually the family orientation of the Korean society has been the driving force behind the nation's rapid economic development and modernization. But still, there are certain side effects. So I just wrote this paper to explore such kind of side effects and also the family value system in the Korean society. Now let me talk about the definition of families before I get started the main topic of my paper. Actually, the familism, the term itself, was first used by the anthropologist and sociologist Kulp. He said that based on his results of a study of families in Guangdong, China, that the organizational form of, he just defined the familism as the organizational form of society in which all values are determined in relation to the maintenance, continuation, and functioning of the family group. That is how the familism is defined. And if you take a look at the Korean films, such as The Ode to My Father, which attracted 14 million movie viewers, and also it was remade in India, and also that remade movie was a huge hit in the Indian the film market. And this movie is about a man who actually devoted his entire life for the sake of family. He got separated from his family during the Korean War, and he actually dispatched to Germany to work as a miner. And then even after he came back to Korea, he actually went to Vietnam War to work as a technical worker, and he came back to Korea with one of his legs injured. And after seeing his injured leg, his wife actually lamenting that even though it is your life, there is no you in your life. So, however, actually the main character said that he thinks that it was way better that he was born in difficult times and went through all those difficulties in this world, not his children. He got separated from his father during his family evacuated from North Korea during the Korean War. And his father, when he got separated from his son, that he should take care of his sister. And actually, it was a big burden on this main character. And actually, he devoted entire his life to support his family. And when he became an old man, he took a look at his dead father's picture and talked to himself that, Father, I kept my promise since I had achieved this much. I had lived a good life. However, it was really hard for me too. So it was a kind of Korean style family orientation, particularly in the modern era. Over the course of the modernization of the nation, the head of a household, usually fathers, sacrificed their lives for the sake of their families. And they didn't have a luxury of living the life that they wanted to. Rather, they just sacrificed themselves for the sake of their family and to support them. This kind of familism was a driving force behind a rapid economic growth of Korea. But recently, there is a growing awareness of the side effects of familism in Korea. Let me remind you of a tragic incident of a suicide case of an entire family. So according to a CCTV footage captured by the national police, the parents of a small elementary school student actually took their daughter to commit suicide together. It seems that the parents or the couple decided to kill themselves. However, they didn't have a nerve to convince their daughter to commit suicide again. So that's why they just fed some drug to their daughter and put them into sleep and commit suicide together. But actually, the term, the companion suicide, which was often used to refer to such a suicide case, was not correct. So there is an opinion that the term should be changed into suicide after killing a child, and this is nothing new here in Korea. But in the Western society, this kind of companion suicide was not allowed. Rather, it was adopted as a suicide after killing a child. And as I've mentioned before, with this, the incident of a companion suicide committed by the parents of an elementary school student, there was a growing voice that we should condemn this kind of suicide case. So we should call it a suicide after killing a child. So in Korea, this kind of suicide cases are nothing new, or neither a few. And according to a government official, there was a strong request made from the government agencies with regard to the change of the term from companion suicide to suicide after killing a child. However, the general opinion is that the suicide after killing a child is too harsh, because they said that we need to understand how the parents would have felt when they tried to kill their children. So this is a totalitarian way of thinking, that when parents decide to commit suicide, they should take their children with them. So this is a negative side or a one-side effect of the Korean style familism. Ms. Kim Hee-kyung, who served as the deputy minister of gender equality ministry, just mentioned that Korea came up with its own peculiar style of familism because of rapid urbanization and economic development, which was achieved without any social safety net. If you take a look at what happened back in 1950s and 1960s, there was a rapid economic growth made. However, there was no social safety net at all here in Korea. It was such a rare case because there are less than or fewer than 5 countries that had achieved this rapid economic growth without any social safety net. So In such an environment, actually, Koreans had no place to resort to other than their families. And that is why the Korean society came with a very exclusive style of family orientation and familism. And it actually led to or developed into family selfishness. And Seon Master Daehaeng pointed it out, and the side effect or the negative aspect of selfish familism here in Korea. She just mentioned that actually, there is an undeniable fact that the Korean familism has been the driving force behind the rapid economic development. However, it's just ended up having a side effect of family selfishness. Now, let me take a look at how the religions or the religious teachings actually talk about the family. Let me take or the quote the analogs of Confucius. There is one episode about Shigong. Shigong said to Confucius, "There is an upright man in my village who testified as a son when his father stole another person's sheep." Then the master said, "This is not the case with upright people in my village. The father hides his child's ears for the sake of child, and a child hides his father's ears for the father. Righteousness is right there." So Confucius said that son should hide his father's mistakes rather than exposing it to others. So you may misled that in Confucianism, actually the family comes first before the interest of community, but that's not the way it is. What Confucius said is that when you serve your parents, even if your parents make a mistake, you should be gentle and euphemism. But even when your parents do not follow your advice, you shall still respect them and shall not disobey your parents. So what Confucianism teaches us is that actually loyalty or obedience to your parents is the very foundation of all social values, and actually family is the very starting point of the entire society and entire nation. And also there are certain rules and principles that all family members should comply with. And if there is a disobedience happens within the family, then it can jeopardize the entire society. That's how the Confucius taught his people. And now let us take a look at what Christianity is said about the family. This is from New Testament, Matthew 10:34 to 37. "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the world. I came not to bring peace, but a sword. I have come to set the son against the father, the daughter against the mother, and the daughter-in-law against the mother-in-law. Your family members are your enemies. Whoever loves father or mother more than me does not deserve to be mine, and whoever loves his son or daughter more than me does not deserve to be mine." It may sound bewildering or too radical. Jesus does not deny the family relationship. Rather, it seems that there are many cases where the people just faced with the obstacle in terms of their religious beliefs because of their family members or the family relationships. So while pursuing the religious beliefs, particularly in terms of Christianity, people or the believers of Jesus should go over their love or attachment to their own families. So let me take another episode of Abraham and his only son Isaac. This is what God has commanded. "Take your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. Go up there to the mountain. I will show you and offer him as a burnt offering to me." So Isaac is a son that Abraham had when he became very old. So from the viewpoint of human beings, actually Abraham had no chance to have another son or another child. So Isaac was his only son, but God actually commanded him to offer his only son to him as a burnt offering. But Abraham actually obeyed what God said.
그만뒀다.
And when he tried to stab his son with a dagger, there is an angel coming to him and stopped him. And God says actually he tested the faith of Abraham by asking him to offer his most precious son unto God. This is the episode that I found in the Bible, and this is unimaginable from the perspective of Confucianism, because God is asking a person or someone to offer his own son as a kind of offering. However, by actually passing the test of God, Abraham became the ancestor of belief. And now let us take a look at what Buddhism says about a family. Let me take an episode from Udana, which is the early scriptures of Buddhism. There is an episode about Visakha. While Buddha was alive, and there was a devout Buddhist called Visakha in Sawati Castle. And Visakha, the old woman, came to Buddha one day as if she had lost her consciousness with her hair wet and tousled in the rain, and complained of suffering because the young granddaughter that she cherished a lot died suddenly. And she could not contain her sorrow. And then the Buddha asked Visakha that, would you be happy if you have many offsprings or the granddaughters like the one that you cherished? And the Buddha, Visakha said that she would be happy, and the Buddha actually asked her again whether she would be happier if she had as many offsprings or the granddaughters as many as the number of the entire people living in Visakha Castle. And she said yes. And Buddha asked again, how many people do you think would die within the Visakha Castle? Visakha Castle is a large castle, so she answered that maybe 2 or 3 people die on a daily basis within Sawati Castle. And then Buddha said that if you have as many granddaughters or offsprings as the number of people who live in the Visakha Castle, you will be in sorrow every day because 2 or 3 of your offspring would die on a daily basis. And actually, there was the moment that the Visakha realized that the pains and the sorrows are the other side of pleasure and joys. This is the actual the episode of what happened while Buddha was alive. So what we can tell from this is that the human happiness and unhappiness always stick together like 2 sides of a coin. So the Buddha said that actually family is a great place for spiritual practice, where you can learn the essence of happiness and unhappiness by experiencing the agonies caused by attachment and the conflict among family. Now let me talk about the teaching of Seon Master Daehaeng, which actually inspired me to write this paper. When she talked about the Japanese colonialism of Korea, she just mentioned that who do you think made us go through such a difficult past, because we only cared about what was comfortable and what was ours. We didn't know what other people were doing, and we haven't gone out to see, so we haven't even discovered the research materials or what to study. And it is because we all thought only about Confucianism and didn't explore the broad and deep truths of the Buddha's teachings. Also, we should know deep down in our bones that we suffered so much from the rule of another country because we thought that only our family matters and only our family should be comfortable and happy, and we did not study or develop what others think of us. So this is what exactly the modern sociologists talked about, the side effects or the negative aspect of the Korean families. And Seon Master Daehaeng also mentioned that even if we have become a developed country now, as I said before, that is why we have had such a painful history, because they neglected Buddhism and placed the importance on Confucianism. They ran outside and got caught up in customs. Confucianism has a limit to being confined to the word to the word of existence. But Buddhism is considered to be more suitable for coping with the future society because it encompasses the word of existence and non-existence. And Seon Master Daehaeng told us that we should make a decision between whether to staying stuck within this narrow familism or just break ourselves free from the family and move toward the world of coexistence. I believe that those two teachings of Seon Master Daehaeng told us a lot about the family. A family is a group of people who meet and live together in a reincarnation that spanned hundreds of millions of eons. So everyone is our family. So we should not stick to our current family in our current life. So when we break ourselves free from our obsession with the current family and current life, then we can become a bigger people or a bigger person. And she also mentioned the role of or the law of the birds of a feather. So people with a similar level of karma meet each other, or they meet each other because they have karma to resolve. And Master Daehaeng told us that we should not blame others. We should blame everything on ourselves. So if we move or take one step further, we can think about another teaching of Seon Master Daehaeng. A meditator must encompass the word of existence and non-existence with the belief that everything is one, not the two, and dissolve the family ties. So we need to actually go beyond the dichotomy of having and letting go. And it requires activeness to jump into the sea of affliction. So there are a lot of the practitioners who suffer from the family issues such as gambling, spouse or husband, or the lazy children. But Seon Master Daehaeng told us that actually we should break ourselves free from our obsession to the current family. Let me take an example of an episode of a third generation only son. Actually, he had some the drug addiction issue, and he came to his mother one day, and he said that actually I need to support my parents. And I believe that I actually wasted my life enough, and now it's time for me to change my mindset and my attitude toward life and start supporting my family. This is what happened to a devout Buddhist and her son. So what I want to say is that if you believe in something in an honest way, then you can connect your mind to a fundamental mind, one mind, and everything will be okay. And let me take another example. The Venerable Songchol Sunim once said that there was a devout Buddhist woman, and she didn't speak to her husband for 30 years because her husband was such a loser and drinking all day without doing anything. So the Venerable Songchol Sunim told her that you start serving your husband, seeing or regarding him as Buddha, as the Buddha. So reluctantly, she changed her attitude and she said something nice, started saying something nice to her husband. So she greeted her husband when he actually went out in the morning and coming home in the afternoon. So actually, her husband was surprised by a sudden change in the attitude of his wife, and he asked why, and she said it's because the teaching of Venerable Songchol, and that is how he turned into a devout Buddhist as well. So the Venerable Songchol told her that actually she should start believing her husband as the Buddha because Actually, Buddha is no different from the people around us, and that's exactly what Seon Master Daehaeng told us. So the family members are the most intimate people in our lives, so we should realize that actually those family members are not different from us, and actually everything is connected to one mind. And if I take one further step, what I can tell you is that a family is the best mirror to reflect ourselves, and we can see our own karma through conflicts and anguish within our families. And also, our family is the best fellow practitioners to provoke and reveal our karma. And I believe that actually no one is an exception from this kind of rule. Sometimes we are annoyed by our spouses or our children, but still, while being annoyed, we can reflect ourselves on, and also we can think about our karma. So what I can tell you is that a family can become a fiercely practicing community. That's what Seon Master Daehaeng taught us. To summarize, I believe that the Korea's family-centered culture has been a great driving force for its rapid economic growth and modernization, but there is a growing awareness of its harmful effects. Seon Master Daehaeng taught us that we must break free from the narrow familiar framework for the development and evolution of individuals and the society. And that's exactly what the sociologists point out with regard to the harmful effects of Korean, the narrow familiar framework. And to this end, it is necessary for us to go beyond the Confucian way of life, which is fixed only to the visual world, and make a shift to the Buddhist way of life. A family is a product of a causal relationship formed through the hundreds of millions of years of transmigration or reincarnation. And people with a similar level of karma meet each other like birds of a feather. And a family is literally a community of practitioners in which we can practice incessantly. And therefore, family members are the optimal fellow practitioners for us. I just collected the teachings of Seon Master Daehaeng to write this paper, and in the end, I just came up with the conclusion that Seon Master Daehaeng's family view is based on the premise of the eternal cycle of birth and reincarnation. And actually, this kind of premise is hard to validate or prove in a scientific way. And I believe that a systematic study on this subject, which is difficult to prove scientifically, needs to be conducted in the future. This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. Mr. Jung gave us a presentation on the subject, which is such a deep, so we can spend the entire day discussing on this topic of family. He also briefed us of the meaning of a family, which has been a most popular motive in the Korean movies. The Korean society is going through a rapid change in terms of its perception of family. And also in his presentation, he briefed us on what each different religion says about family and what kind of implications we can have. Even though his presentation was short, I believe that it gave us a lot of the materials to think about. In his presentation, Mr. Jung also mentioned what Seon Master Daehaeng taught us about family and how we need to break free from our obsession with our current family. So he just mentioned, or Mr. Jung mentioned, that actually the family members are optimal fellow practitioners for us. And while listening to Mr. Jung's presentation, and also the presentations made other presenters this morning and yesterday, I just found that when we talk about the coexistence, we should achieve mutual respect. So mutual respect will work within the family. But if we take a look at the ordinary family, father has the strongest voice and he makes all the decisions. And also, it is regarded that the father should take responsibility for the entire family, supporting it. But actually, we need to take a different or a new perspective with regard to how we see family. Based on the teachings of Seon Master Daehaeng, it seems that we have around 10 minutes to entertain questions from the floor. Actually, while wrapping the presentation made by Mr. Jung, I just asked a certain question in the form of comment. Is there any question from the floor?
사실 저는 이제 다들 뭐 가족 관계가 사실은
So it seems that the family relationship is the source of agony of many people. So family members go through similar experiences. However, each individual member of family can have a different perspective. And also it is widely known that parents tend not to respect their children, and it will take a long time for us to change our mindset or the family the relationship related framework. While working on a research with regard to the family affairs in relation to the UN organizations, I just came across a finding that in order to have a well-functioning family, we should actually cherish the individualism or respect each individual member's rights. But it's very hard to implement such kind of principle within our family. Actually, my children became adults, and they are older than 30 years old. And still, I just find it very difficult for me to respect my children as independent individuals. And during the presentation, Mr. Jung mentioned that Seon Master Daehaeng mentioned our family members are our optimal fellow practitioners. So could you please be more specific about that phrase? Or do you have a question from the floor?
방금 이것은 박사님 말씀하고도 연결되는
I
부분이라
think my question is related to what Dr. Lee mentioned. You just mentioned family. You just mentioned the teaching of Seon Master Daehaeng that the family members are the optimal fellow practitioners for us. I had a conflict and tension with my husband, and the abbot, the venerable abbot S님, told me that I should regard my husband as my mentor or my master, but I was kind of bewildered after I heard that, because at the time I thought that the Venerable S님 doesn't know what kind of person my husband is. I cannot serve him, or I cannot regard him as a master or a mentor. But now I realize what it means. Actually, I need to embrace or accept my husband as he is. So, and also I needed to think about what I have done wrong before I blame my husband. So the family is a kind of community where we can practice all together, and we are all connected with one another. So I think there are a lot of meaning that we can identify when we say that the family is a community where the fellow practitioners can practice together. Because when we regard our family members as one, which is not different from ourselves. So could you please comment on what I said? I told you that we can learn about our karma by looking at our family members. And what enlightened me a lot, or to a great extent, is that I spent my college days in my uncle's house. And actually, my uncle supported me and paid for my tuition fee for my college education. I feel really grateful for what he has done for me. But one of my nephews told me whether actually I knew how to get angry. And that was the moment that I realized that actually I've never got angry in my university days. And I thought about myself whether I'm the kind of person who are not easily get angry. But actually, in my childhood, actually, I had a very violent father, and
깜짝 놀란 거예요. 근데 저는 못 느끼고 있었어요.
I was very nonchalant and cold to my father, but without knowing myself. So I actually didn't like my father, and whenever my father talked to me, I got nonchalant and I just gave a cold shoulder to my father. But I was totally different when I talked to my uncle, who actually supported me and paid for my tuition. So what I can tell you is that I'm not the kind of person who will not easily get upset or angry. Rather, I'm a person who can get angry very easily, and that's how I actually treated my family when I went back to my family in the countryside. So it was a big enlightenment for me. So what I can tell you is that within and among your family members, there are certain members who actually get on your nerves and make you angry. And those are your masters, or actually those members are the ones who make you think about yourself. And Master Daehaeng once told us that even though you do not like someone, they can be a good teacher for you. So those family members whom you do not like would be also great teachers for you to practice spiritually. When I have some kind of fight with my wife, I actually bowed to her and actually I tried to regard her as the Buddha. But when there is a serious conflict with my wife, I just found it very difficult to treat her like the Buddha. But still, I gave a try, and actually, my episode actually can tell you that our family members can be an optimal fellow practitioners for all of us. I hope that I answered your question. Do you have any other question?
네, 선생님, 저는 동국대학교의 이석환입니다.
I'm Iseokhan from Dongguk University.
책임 연구원을 맡고 있습니다.
I am a senior research fellow at Daehaeng Seon Research Center.
듣고 정말 좋은 주제를 선택하신 것
I
같아요. 가정 윤리
am not here to ask a question. Rather, I would like to talk about what I felt after listening to your presentation. You just gave us some kind of clue how we can utilize the teaching of Seon Master Daehaeng for our family relationship. But there is one point that I want to make here. You just make a comparative study among Confucianism, Buddhism, and Christianity. And when you talked about Confucianism, actually you just took a look at very specific or too limited examples when you mentioned the Confucius quotation about the family. So you need to actually broaden your comparative study, particularly in the area of Confucianism. And another point that I want to make to you is that you actually got your title of your paper as the meaning of family from a perspective of spiritual practice in terms of Seon Master Daehaeng's teachings. But we all know that Seon Master Daehaeng puts a lot of emphasis on taking actions. So we actually need to find the 주인공 inside of ourselves, and actually we need to practice Kwanpop or observe ourselves rigorously. So the Master Daehaeng emphasized the action, taking actions. So I'm just wondering whether your perspective actually complies with what Seon Master Daehaeng taught us. Could you please specify the last point that you've made?
내가 내 삶 속에서
So while living our own lives, so we need to think about the way to take actions. So I'm just wondering whether you can come up with any methodology to take actions based on the findings that we get from our spiritual practice. I actually mentioned the episode of Venerable Songchul in my presentation. I told you that our daily family practice
근데
can be
공통된 걸 찾은 거거든요.
actually closely linked to our relationship with our family. And we always say that we need to have a firm belief, and also we need to realize that we are all connected. And also we need to learn how to break free ourselves from our obsession about our family and the members of the family. But I'm not saying in my presentation that we don't need to take action, just believing or writing inwardly. But what I can tell you is that actually, when we enlighten or when we become aware of the true meaning of family, then we can actually take actions in a desirable way. So, in order to be nice to your family members, you need to put everything down or put your thoughts down. Or eliminate all the negative the thoughts about your family. So while you're looking at what Daehaeng, Seon Master Daehaeng taught us about family, I just found that if you have a true realization or enlightenment about the meaning of the family, then you will not be annoyed by what your family member says to you or what your family member does to you. That's the true enlightenment to the best of my knowledge.
감사합니다. 그러면